They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. The day you stand in front of the person you love and promise forever. Mine was nothing like that. I still remember the feeling, the tightness in my chest, the way my breath caught in my throat as I stood there, dressed in the most beautiful white gown, surrounded by flowers, music, and 100 hopeful faces. My hands trembled, my heart pounded in anticipation, but he never came. The whispers started first. Soft at first, like a distant hum. Then louder, like crashing waves against the walls of the church. My maid of honor, Sarah, kept glancing at her phone, her face turning paler by the second. My mother's smile faded into a worried frown. The officiant cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. And then, finally, someone had the courage to say it out loud. He's not coming. 3 words. Just 3 words. But they hit me like a train. My knees wobbled, and I had to grip the edge of the altar to keep myself from falling. The room started spinning. No. This had to be a mistake. I looked at my father, searching for reassurance, for a reason to believe this was all a joke, a misunderstanding. But the look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. Aaron, my fiancé, the man who had promised to love me forever, had left me at the altar. The gasps echoed around the room. Someone in the back let out a shocked, "Oh my God." Sarah grabbed my hand, her fingers ice cold against my burning skin. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, humiliated, shattered into a million pieces in front of everyone I knew. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling as I read the words that made my world crumble even more. "I'm sorry. I can't do this." That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just 5 cold, heartless words. And just like that, my fairy tale turned into a nightmare. I wasn't the kind of girl who believed in love at first sight. Growing up, I watched my parents navigate a cold, loveless marriage, staying together out of obligation rather than passion. I told myself I would never settle for anything less than a love that felt real, one that made my heart race and my soul feel alive. And then I met Aaron. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky is painted in shades of gray and the air smells of wet pavement. I was late for a meeting, juggling a coffee cup, my phone, and an armful of paperwork when I crashed into someone hard. My coffee went flying, my papers scattered like fallen leaves, and I nearly landed flat on my back. But before I could hit the ground, strong arms caught me. "Whoa, careful there," a deep voice said, laced with amusement. I looked up straight into the most breathtaking blue eyes I'd ever seen. Aaron. He laughed as he helped me collect my papers, brushing off the steaming coffee that had splashed onto his shirt like it was nothing. Most guys would have been annoyed. He wasn't. Instead, he flashed a grin and said, "Guess I owe you a new coffee." That was how it started. Our relationship wasn't an instant whirlwind, it was a slow burn, the kind that crept up on me when I least expected it. At first, we were just 2 people who kept running into each other at the cafe down the street, exchanging casual hellos that turned into long conversations. Then came the late-night phone calls, the stolen glances, the way he made me laugh even when I'd had the worst day. He was charming, thoughtful, the kind of man who paid attention to the smallest details. He remembered how I liked my coffee, how I scrunched my nose when I was deep in thought, how I got teary-eyed at old movies even when I swore I wasn't crying. For 3 years, he was my world. We traveled together, made memories in tiny hole-in-the-wall restaurants, and talked about our future like it was written in the stars. I trusted him with every part of me. So when he got down on one knee, under a sky filled with fairy lights, and whispered, "Marry me," there was no hesitation in my heart when I said yes. Our wedding planning was a dream. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back, there were signs. Tiny cracks in the picture-perfect love story I had painted in my mind. The way he started coming home later than usual. The distracted look in his eyes when we talked about our future. The way he hesitated whenever I asked him if he was happy. But I ignored it. I told myself it was just pre-wedding stress, that every couple went through it. I believed in him. I believed in us. And that belief was the biggest mistake of my life. A week before the wedding, I should have seen it coming. Aaron had been acting strange, more distant, more distracted. I blamed it on pre-wedding jitters, the stress of planning, the pressure of forever looming over us. But the truth was, I was lying to myself. It started with small things. He stopped answering my calls as quickly as he used to. Our late-night conversations, the ones I cherished, became shorter, filled with awkward silences. He kept his phone face down, something he never used to do. One night, I found him staring at his screen, his jaw tight, his fingers frozen mid-text. When I asked what was wrong, he forced a smile, shoved his phone into his pocket, and kissed my forehead. "Nothing, babe. Just work stuff." I wanted to believe him. But then came the first real crack. It was 5 days before the wedding. I was at my final dress fitting, standing in front of the mirror, staring at the lace-trimmed gown I had spent months dreaming about. The tailor pinned the last few adjustments while my maid of honor, Sarah, gushed over how beautiful I looked. My phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. "Hey, I might be late tonight, don't wait up." Something about it didn't sit right. It was cold, distant, like an afterthought. Sarah noticed my hesitation. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just Aaron being busy." But deep down, unease curled in my stomach like a warning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something kept gnawing at me, a feeling I couldn't shake. So, against my better judgment, I did something I had never done before. I opened his laptop. Aaron wasn't the type to log out of his accounts. He never had anything to hide. At least, that's what I thought. But the moment I clicked on his messages, my world shifted. There it was. A conversation. A name I didn't recognize. And a message that made my breath catch in my throat. "I can't stop thinking about you. Are you sure she doesn't suspect anything?" My vision blurred. My hands trembled. I scrolled up. More messages. More confessions. More of my worst nightmare unfolding right in front of me. Aaron was cheating. And not just some meaningless flirtation, this was deeper. This was real. I read through every word, each one cutting deeper than the last. They had been meeting in secret. He had been lying to me for months. And the worst part? He told her he wasn't sure if he could go through with the wedding. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. I wanted to scream, to cry, to break everything in sight. Instead, I sat there, frozen, staring at the man I thought I knew, the man who was supposed to love me, betraying me in a way I never saw coming. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. Everything was about to change. I sat there in the dim light of our apartment, my hands clenched into fists, my heart pounding so hard it drowned out every other sound. The messages were right in front of me, black and white, proof of Aaron's betrayal, yet my mind refused to accept it. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe this wasn't what it looked like. Maybe no. I clenched my jaw. There was no maybe here. The words were clear, the intent undeniable. "I can't stop thinking about you. Are you sure she doesn't suspect anything?" That line alone shattered everything I believed about our love. I read it over and over, as if the meaning would somehow change. As if, in some cruel twist, I'd realize I had misunderstood, but I hadn't. My fingers hovered over my phone. Should I call him? Demand an explanation? No, that wasn't enough. I needed to see him, to look him in the eyes and watch him try to lie to me. The apartment felt suffocating. The walls, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a prison, closing in on me. Sarah. I needed Sarah. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number with shaky hands. It rang twice before she answered. "Hey, bride-to-be. What? He's cheating." My voice cracked, my throat dry. Silence. Then, cautiously, What are you talking about?" I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. Aaron, I found messages. Another woman. He's been lying to me. A sharp inhale from her side of the line. Oh my God, are you sure? I let out a bitter laugh. Would I be calling you if I wasn't? Where are you? Oh, I'm coming over. I hung up and stared at the screen. My reflection in the dark glass barely recognizable. My eyes were wide, filled with something between heartbreak and rage. Why? Why would he do this to me? The question repeated in my head like a broken record. Had I done something wrong? Had I not been enough? Has he ever really loved me? I ran to every moment of our relationship, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things had changed. The stolen glances, the late nights, the way he held me just a little less tightly than before. How had I missed it? My stomach churned. And then another thought crept in, one I hadn't dared to entertain. What if he never planned to marry me at all? A cold shiver ran down my spine. What if, in just a few days, I would have been standing at the altar, surrounded by friends and family, waiting for a man who had already decided to walk away? The front door swung open, breaking me out of my spiraling thoughts. Sarah rushed in, eyes wide with concern. Show me, she demanded. I handed her the laptop, watching as her face twisted with anger. That bastard, she muttered, shaking her head. I swear to God, I'll kill him. A humorless chuckle escaped my lips. Get in line. She looked up at me, studying my face. What are you going to do? I swallowed hard. I don't know. Confront him? Call off the wedding? Pretend like I didn't see anything and wait for him to break me completely? I had no answers. Only one thing was certain. I couldn't unsee what I had just seen. And nothing between us would ever be the same again. The next morning, I woke up with a headache pounding behind my eyes, my body aching from a night of restless sleep. I had spent hours reading and rereading those messages, each word stabbing me in the chest like a knife. But by sunrise, my heartbreak had hardened into something else: determination. I needed to know the truth. Sarah had tried to convince me to confront Aaron right away, but that wasn't enough. I didn't want to give him a chance to twist his words, to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I needed proof. So I did something I never thought I would do. I followed him. Aaron always had his routine morning gym, coffee shop, then work. Except today, instead of heading to his office, he turned in the opposite direction. My fingers clenched the steering wheel as I watched him from a safe distance. Where the hell are you going? I tailed him through the city, my heart racing as he parked in front of a small, secluded cafe. He stepped out of his car, ran a hand through his hair, then checked his phone. And then she arrived. A woman. Tall, elegant, effortlessly beautiful. She walked straight up to him like she belonged there, like she had done it 100 times before. Aaron smiled at her. A smile I hadn't seen in weeks. And then, without hesitation, he leaned in, pressing his lips to hers. I stopped breathing. The world around me blurred as my grip on reality shattered into a million pieces. It was real. I wasn't imagining it. He was kissing another woman. Days before our wedding. A strangled sound escaped my throat, a mix of rage and devastation. My hands trembled on the wheel, my nails digging into the leather. I wanted to storm in there, scream, throw things, demand answers. But then something even worse happened. She pulled away, laughing softly, and rested a hand on her stomach. Aaron's hand followed, resting gently over hers. And then I saw it. The way she looked at him. The way he looked at her. Like they were sharing a secret. Like they were sharing a life. My stomach dropped. No. 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 No, was she? Pregnant? A wave of nausea hit me like a punch to the gut. My vision blurred as I tried to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just an affair. This was something much worse. Aaron wasn't just cheating on me, he had another life, another future he was building, and I was nothing but an obstacle standing in the way. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of betrayal. The man I loved, the man I was supposed to marry in a matter of days, was expecting a child with someone else, and suddenly, Everything made sense. Why he had been distant. Why he had hesitated. Why he had sent that cold, detached text. He never planned on going through with the wedding. He was too much of a coward to tell me the truth. I'd been waiting for a man who had already moved on. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. Instead, I took a deep, shaky breath, wiped my face, and reached for my phone. If he thought he was going to get away with this, he had another thing coming. The night before our wedding, Aaron came home late. I was already sitting in the dimly lit living room, waiting. My hands were clasped in my lap, my mind replaying everything I had seen that morning, the way he kissed her, the way he touched her stomach, the way they had smiled like they were planning a future together. Without me. When he walked through the door, he looked exhausted, running a hand through his hair as he set his keys down. "Hey babe, long day. How long have you been lying to me?" My voice was eerily calm, too controlled, and that made him pause. His back stiffened for a second before he turned to face me. "What are you talking about?" I stood slowly, my hands trembling at my sides, but I clenched them into fists. "I saw you today, Aaron." His brows knitted together. "Saw me where?" "At the cafe," I said, my voice cracking. "With her." Silence. I watched as the color drained from his face, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. "You're lying," he said, shaking his head, almost as if he were trying to convince himself. I let out a humorless laugh. "Am I?" Then, before he could deny it again, I pulled out my phone, opened the photo I had taken from my car, and turned the screen toward him. It was all there. The kiss. His hand on her stomach. Their stupid, blissful smiles. I expected him to panic, to scramble for excuses, to stammer his way through some pathetic attempt at gaslighting me. But he didn't. Instead, Aaron exhaled slowly, as if accepting his fate, and sat down on the couch. He rubbed his hands over his face before finally looking at me. "I was going to tell you," he said. I scoffed. "When? At the altar?" "I don't know," he snapped, suddenly agitated. "I didn't mean for this to happen, okay? You didn't mean for this to happen." I repeated, my voice rising. "You didn't mean to cheat on me? You didn't mean to get her pregnant?" He flinched but said nothing. The silence was deafening. My hands curled into fists. "How long?" he sighed, rubbing his temple. 6 months. I staggered back as if I had been physically struck. 6 months. For half a year, he had been living this double life. For half a year, I'd been planning a wedding, while he had been planning a future with someone else. I felt sick. "Who is she?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Aaron hesitated, then finally muttered, "Her name is Danielle. She wasn't supposed to mean anything." I let out a bitter laugh, wiping my tear-streaked face. "And yet, she's having your baby." Aaron looked away. "I didn't know she was pregnant until last week." His words hit me like a knife to the gut. Last week. That's why he had been distant. That's why he had been acting like he was already gone. Because he was. I took a step closer, my voice shaking. "Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to leave me at the altar and let me figure it out on my own?" His silence was my answer. And that's when it truly hit me. I had been nothing but a placeholder. Aaron didn't love me. Not enough. Not in the way that mattered. Something inside me snapped. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the humiliation, it all morphed into pure, burning rage. "You are the worst kind of person," I whispered, my hands trembling. "I gave you everything. I trusted you, and you were too much of a coward to even tell me the truth." He sighed, standing up. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't—" "Stop." I held up my hand. "You don't get to say sorry. You don't get to stand here and act like you didn't destroy everything." Aaron ran a hand through his hair, exhaling. "I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Well, congratulations. You did." For a moment, we just stood there. Two people who once planned a life together, now standing in the ruins of what could have been. Finally, I spoke again. "You don't have to break up with me, Aaron," I said, my voice steady despite the tears in my eyes. "Because I'm breaking up with you." His eyes widened slightly, but I didn't let him speak. Instead, I turned around, grabbed my suitcase that I had packed earlier, and walked toward the door. I didn't look back, because Aaron no longer deserved to see me cry. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I walked out of Aaron's apartment, suitcase in hand, I felt numb. My feet carried me forward, but my mind was stuck in a whirlwind of betrayal, rage, and disbelief. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so blind? I checked into a hotel on the other side of town. I couldn't go home yet. Home was supposed to be the place I shared with my future husband. Now, it was just a reminder of everything I had lost. Or maybe, everything I had been saved from. As I lay on the cold, unfamiliar hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, a single thought burned in my mind. Tomorrow was supposed to be my wedding day. I should have been surrounded by my closest friends and family, slipping into the white dress I had spent months searching for. I should have been walking down the aisle toward the man I thought I would spend forever with. Instead, I was alone. But maybe that wasn't the worst thing. Maybe being alone was better than being with someone who had never truly loved me. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing endlessly on the nightstand. Missed calls, text messages, all from friends, family, and of course Aaron. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent a single message to the group chat where all my bridesmaids had been making last-minute wedding plans. "There won't be a wedding today." A flood of concerned messages came instantly, but I ignored them. I wasn't ready to explain yet. The only person I owed an explanation to was myself. I got dressed, ordered coffee, and sat by the window, watching the world move on while mine felt like it had been flipped upside down. And then, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Aaron take anything else from me. I had lost enough time on him. So, instead of crying in my hotel room, I picked up my phone and called Sarah. Sarah and my other bridesmaids showed up within the hour, armed with wine, hugs, and an insane idea. "Why should all the wedding arrangements go to waste?" Sarah said, pouring me a full glass of champagne. "The venue is booked, the guests are coming, the food is paid for, so why not throw a party?" I blinked at her. "Are you serious?" "As serious as your ex was about cheating on you," she deadpanned. "We could turn this into the best screw him celebration ever." At first, the idea seemed ridiculous. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Why should I spend today mourning a man who never deserved me? Why should I hide while he got to move on without consequences? So, a few hours later, I found myself standing in front of the wedding venue, not as a bride, but as a woman reclaiming her own story. The guests were already arriving, confusion turning into understanding as word spread. Some looked awkward, others sympathetic. But most? Most were ready to support me. Aaron's family didn't show up. Good. His friends, the ones who knew what he had been doing behind my back, they weren't welcome. But my people were there. And that was enough. The reception that was meant to celebrate my marriage turned into a celebration of something else freedom. I danced. I laughed. I toasted to a future where I didn't have to settle for a man who could betray me so easily. And when the night ended, I stood on the balcony, looking out at the city, and finally felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. As I was heading back to the hotel, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, but I knew exactly who it was. "Aaron, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please, can we talk?" I stared at the message, my heart strangely still. A few days ago, I would have crumbled at those words. Now, I felt nothing. I didn't reply. I blocked his number. And then, I deleted our old messages, our photos, and every trace of him from my phone. Aaron had already taken so much from me. I wasn't about to let him take any more. Tomorrow, I would wake up and start a new chapter 1 where I was no longer just someone's fiancé. I was simply me. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.